afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of LevelUp Cyber. My name is Tony Bryan, your host and Executive Director of CyberUp. So excited. I feel like it's been forever since I've recorded a show, but excited to jump into the conversation today. We're joined by Scott Hudson, longtime friend of the organization. He's been hanging out. We met years ago when he was teaching at a local college here in the area and has continued to do great things in his career. But now Scott serves as a director of IT over at Mercy Healthcare, one of the biggest healthcare systems in St. Louis, has been a big advocate. So Scott, thank you so much for joining and welcome to the show.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me. And I do want to make one small correction because people will get upset. I am not a director of IT. I am a business relationship manager. It's a little bit different. I basically sit in the middle between the operations leaders and the Mercy Technology Services leadership. So, there's one small correction there, but
you're the liaison to make sure everybody knows the words that are being said and they can communicate.
Of sorts, yes. Translating the language between the parties, yeah.
All right. So you and I have known each other for quite a few years. I think almost 8, if memory serves me correctly, which seems crazy, but not everybody else does. So I'd love to have you just take a second, introduce yourself, how you got to where you're at, a little bit about your career journey and where you're at now.
Yeah, actually, it's a really diverse journey and an interesting journey. I started out wanting to do elementary education. I studied for my bachelor's degree to get an elementary education certificate, a bachelor's degree in that. And then I went on to get a master's, and I taught for a while. Then I went on to get a master's degree in instructional technology, designing curriculum, things like that. And then eventually I moved into technical training at a local organization, teaching adults how to use things like Word and PowerPoint and things like that, Excel. And then I got recruited to go over to a community college up in Godfrey. And I taught there for about 4 years doing, computer security, administration, that kind of thing, computer networking. And then I got recruited to my current position as a business relationship manager, where I've been here for about 7 years, and I really do enjoy it.
I mean, I know that the role you play in just transferring skills and language is such an important part, and I think a really good segue to what we're going to talk about today, right? The idea of whether we want to call it soft skills, power skills, professional skills. I don't know, I've heard a lot of words and kind of different ways to describe it, but they are such a fundamental core concept for individuals trying to break into it. And there's, some kind of, we'll call it recipes or some kind of hacks that somebody could go and do to kind of build that personal brand and improve their power skills and ways to do it. So I'm excited to kind of go down this path. So it's always important for me just to define what the word means. So, in your words, what is a power skill or soft skill for somebody?
Well, I mean, in my role as a relationship manager, the foundation of what I do is relationships, establishing, leveraging, and maintaining relationships across the organization with, everybody within the organization, all the way from, senior leadership down to, line coworkers. Those are the people that I engage with, on a daily basis. And I think storytelling is a big thing that we're working on. Just engagement, those kind of things. Yeah.
So let's run through a couple scenarios here, because I think people find their ways to you in different journeys, right? So there's the good old fashioned traditional journey. I'm a college student. I'm going, do my 4-year program, and we'll lump in community college here. So let's say I've taken a traditional pathway. As I'm going through my college and education, my studies, what things can I be doing on my end to start looking ahead to preparing soft skills and getting myself ready for what you just described to build that brand?
That's a great question. I think part of it is just practicing, building relationships, putting yourself out there, trusting yourself, trusting your instincts, being curious, wanting to find out more about people and their situations. If there's something that's interesting to you slightly, ask about it, dig into that. The idea would be to not pigeonhole yourself into one opportunity. For the last 3 opportunities I've had career-wise, they've all been recruitment situations where somebody has come to find me because of something that I've shown that would be of importance to the organization, because I built those relationships. And I think that's where you start, is just building out, being a good person, being curious, being authentic, and don't take things personally in relationships. I mean, you can take them personally because they're personal relationships, but if something goes wrong or there's conflict, not to take it, not.
Got you back. There you go.
I cut out there, Tony. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And actually a great segue to the next kind of question. So, especially for college students in some of these programs, there's a lot of.
Right now, I have no audio. I can't hear you.
All right. Well, while you work, I'll kind of go and I'll go on a tangent where we go for a second. So, a lot of times in these college settings for students, you find that, there are opportunities that fall within this, where there are intentional programs and services through career services for educators in college.
I don't know what to do here, buddy.
That they have the ability to help kind of coach and mentor to that. For those students that do not have those opportunities, they would come through a non-traditional program or maybe self-paced, finding those opportunities for professional development or bolstering your kind of power skills, and there it gets a little bit harder on your own. So what advice, can you hear me again, Scott?
I can hear you again. I apologize.
Yeah, all good. So, in the question and instance of that, I was leading into, colleges do a great job of preparing students because they have career services, that are going to help bolster and actually be intentional and create those opportunities for students where, somebody on their own or maybe going through a non-traditional kind of self-paced program is going to have a lot more intentionality of how they find those opportunities. So, let's say I am a non-traditional student, where are some ways I could go and bolster my own kind of professional skills along the way?
Well, I think, your program offers a lot of great resources out there, finding programs that you may not have a full degree path, but they do have a specific, set of skills that you define and develop. If you online, there's lots of videos, podcasts, reading. There's lots of ways to get into the situation or the area that you want to get involved in down the road. The other thing that I've learned too is to be willing to jump at opportunities. So if an opportunity comes your way, jump on it. Even if it's a short-term opportunity, it's something that's interesting to you in the now, then go for it. But I think really getting yourself prepared for a career is just developing lots of small skills along the way.
Yeah. Just we kind of elaborate a little bit on the idea of mentors, right? I found that those are really a good way to have maybe an individual or two who can really kind of lean in, and when you get stuck and maybe have those questions, what are some recommendations on your end around like ways to find mentors or maybe somebody who would be that kind of trusted consigliere that I can confide in along the way as I'm trying to grow my set of skills?
Yeah, one of the struggles I had about finding a mentor is that I've been looking for a mentor that is at my level or just below my level. I mean, like where I want to be, just below where I want to be, maybe in the the ladder or skill set wise. They already have the skills that I have. Those kind of things is really kind of trying to find a mentor, someone who is you see as maybe has a position that you want, or has a skill set that you're missing, or is someone who you can trust to tell you hard information. So you'll be willing to find someone who's going to tell you the things you need to hear, rather than a friend that's going to tell you the stuff that you want to hear. So that's kind of where I've made some pivots, finding people who career-wise, ladder-wise are above me or have the skill set where I want to be, and just really picking their brain and being authentic and asking questions, even if they're awkward, and being prepared for awkward, or things that may hurt my feelings, in order for me to grow. And so that's kind of where I've gone with mentor route. And I've also offered myself up as a mentor. I've worked with a couple of organizations to be a mentor, where people have come to me and as the mentor, just listening and understanding and kind of responding and letting the mentee direct the conversation or direct the relationship. And I think that's another thing when you find a mentor is find someone who is willing to listen and let you direct kind of where the conversation goes.
Yeah, I know for me there are, you mentioned some programs. So I had participated in something years ago called American Corporate Partners, designed towards veteran engagement. It was good. It was a learning lesson for me, right? It didn't seem like a natural fit for the person, but as we kind of got into the relationship, there was more parallels there, but it was a good learning point of just, the questions to ask and how to interact with it. And I think all too often the mentee puts the burden and the ownership of the relationship on the mentor, and that's actually backwards, right? The mentee should be the one driving that and setting expectations. Now, the mentor is kind of, they're the corraller to make sure we stay on topic and kind of hit towards goals. But in terms of just meeting preparedness and coming in, it really is on that mentee. And so it's hard. It's a really, mentor-mentee is a hard relationship that requires a high level of intentionality. But so important in the grand scheme of things to really help you grow. I know for me, the hard questions are always uncomfortable at first, but man, they make you 10 times better in the end because you get an opportunity to take a look at what really matters or what's really important to that person, and you get a little bit different perspective. So I've just over the years, especially in this role, just leaned into the uncomfortability of, questions, uncomfortableness of a question, and try to come at it from a good perspective. And sometimes for me, I'm definitely a glass half full kind of person, or glass half empty kind of person, not half full. I'm more of a pessimist than an optimist. So I generally read bad things in a message where it's not necessarily the case. So I've had to really retrain myself in some of those things as I read feedback around and tone and kind of intention behind that. So, yeah.
Well, I think you brought up a good point there. Just also some of that clarity. If you're getting a message and you're interpreting it one way, is ask clarifying questions to your mentor. Hey, look, this is the way I meant to ask it, or you said this, but what does that exactly mean? Because if you're walking away from an engagement with a mentor and you don't have a real clear picture on where your areas of growth are or opportunities for growth, then you're missing something. You need to go back and ask and really define the answer that you're looking for.
So as we look through kind of career paths, right? So I think there's a way where we can kind of segment this a little bit more around entry level, kind of mid career, and maybe senior career, right? Because I think those things change, and you just alluded to in your own kind of personal journey around mentor of how you've had it. So let's say I am a green industry professional, cyber person that I've been into the space. Maybe I'm in my first year of my job, right? Where should I be looking for guidance and maybe try to find some of those relationships or opportunities to grow?
Usually it's supervisor, manager, somebody that's within, even if it's within your organization, find a trusted colleague, that type of thing. The beginning of your career, when I was teaching, I have students now. I've been 7 years away from the college, and I have students that I taught that are on their, the third and fourth, careers, not just jobs, but careers that when you get into the space, especially if it's cybersecurity, that there is a lot of movement. And sometimes there are organizations where in order for you to grow or to go on, you have to leave the organization and go to a different organization. But I think within an organization, if you've been, if you've got a job or if you're looking for jobs, is to find somebody in the space where you're wanting to be, and really just picking their brain and see where it goes. Ask questions, and ask probing questions. And really, no question is too silly, I think, if it leads you to the answer that you're looking for in order to grow and to get into the space that you ideally want to be in.
Yeah, that's really great feedback. I'm going to say same question mid-career, right? Because that changes. So, and I found like even just as you just described, a lot of individuals, because there are so many pathways within the space, and it's going to vary by organization, right? Some organizations have all the things, and some organizations have a small offshoot and outsource some of those things. So it can get kind of complicated, right? To kind of figure out what I want to be when I grow up over the course of cybersecurity space. What advice would you give for, that 4, 5, 6 year professional who's kind of looking at that next step? Do I strive to be a CISO? Do I want to continue to be an individual contributor? Where does somebody like that turn to?
Yeah, I think the same thing as trying to find somebody above you, above where you're currently located, and I think at that point, if you're wanting to get in, like you said, into the CISO space, you want to get into the C-suite, if you're wanting to get into management, leadership, is to find people who are willing to, impart leadership skills upon you. There are lots of resources online you can go out and find for leadership videos, podcasts. You type in leadership on YouTube, you're going to get dozens and dozens of different opinions. But I think really it's just trying to find somebody that you trust and that you see they have something that you are missing, maybe a skill, or maybe if it's demeanor, maybe if it's a like you said, soft skill, maybe it's just an approach that you're interested in, and just ask questions. And I think wanted to clarify something too about mentors is that really, rather than having one mentor, getting yourself pigeonholed with one mentor, is to have multiple, have five mentors, and maybe each mentor discusses with you a different aspect of your growth journey. If you're wanting to get into management, finding that leader that you really like their style and asking them those style questions. If it's just personal relationships, asking somebody who is good at personal relationships, and picking their brain on how to deal with conflict, how to deal with you know right relationships, things like that. So like I said, I wanted to expand on just having multiple mentors, if you will.
Yeah. And then last, we've got the senior folks, right? I feel like, to me, I've always had the CISO role seems it seems scary to me. I don't know. I mean, it's, you're oftentimes the kind of fall person on something bad that happens. I know there's policies and procedures and, SEC's kind of putting more, protocols in place for this thing, but man, I can only imagine that it can get a little lonely at the top, as you're trying to advocate for that. So, where does somebody go there, at that kind of top echelon to continue to bolster their skills and, move up in their careers? Because, you hit the top, where do you go from there?
Yeah. And I'm not quite there yet. But I would imagine that it's going to cause you to leave your organization. You're obviously going to be in a partnership with the senior leaders in your organization, but it may cause you to go outside of your organization and go to a different one. And I know that there's networks out there of CISOs and for different companies, and finding somebody within a business is similar to yours, and just picking their brain and going over things that how do you handle the day in the life of being that leader in your organization, and asking those kind of questions. That's really kind of what I was thinking.
What, as we kind of transition back a little bit just to the heart, and those are great answers, and I think great advice for those because there are stages to your careers that are going to continue to morph and evolve. And I think you might come into this with aspirations, because I know most people that come into our program all aspire to work in a SOC or do pen testing, right? Because it's cool, or it seems to be cool, or that's what's touted that everybody knows. And so at the end of the day, they start to realize, man, governance, risk, and compliance, that doesn't sound terrible. Auditing and assessments, that's also not terrible. So there's a whole, I want to make the most money I can. Sales is probably where I want to go. So there's a lot of different pathways in there, but you're going to probably kiss a few frogs to find your prince and where you want to go. And what you laid out is a great way to have a person or an individual kind of help coach and mentor you through that piece. Let's get kind of back to the brass tacks of, what are some non-negotiable skills or kind of soft skills that you think somebody needs to bring into a security role, to be successful within their job?
I think you have to have integrity. I think everything in security revolves around integrity, and that's different than honesty. I think integrity is doing what's right when nobody's looking. When nobody's checking you, nobody's auditing you, doing the right thing always. I think that's where you start fundamentally, and that begins with relationships. That begins with the X's and O's of technology and cybersecurity, is just having personal integrity, professional integrity. That's kind of where you start. That's not negotiable. And then I also think that curiosity, being curious, always be willing to discover new things and new ideas, new ways of looking at something, new ways of approaching things. Being curious is a good way to grow there as well. I think you just have to have a right attitude as well. Developing an attitude that every day you come at it with fresh eyes and fresh mind. If it's a problem, if it's a relationship, just having a good attitude. Where I work, we talk a lot about right relationships. So the idea would be, in a relationship, you're always trying to maintain the relationship, keeping going forward, and doing things to help foster that commitment to each other. That when times get hard, you're not going to quit. You're going to continue to develop that relationship going forward. So I think those are some good foundational things.
Integrity is close, near and dear to my heart. It's part of the core values of my Army days. So I am also a fan of that. And trust was always one for me that has always stuck, right? Especially as an employer. If there is a breakdown in trust in our relationship, it's really hard for me to have that person be around. If a simple task, there's a lack of trust in that, those simple tasks get really, really hard. You're in a high stress kind of environment that a security team could be. That integrity and trust is such a crucial aspect of the team. And I also just this sector of cyber infosec's been as close as I've ever seen to the military for myself. And so it really is the teamwork, the camaraderie. It's such an important part. And there's a fundamental breakdown of some of that trust and integrity. It does have a huge impact kind of on your team.
Yeah. And I've seen some videos like on YouTube where, they're talking about, high performance and high trust and low performance and low trust. And that there are organizations out there that would rather have a high trust, medium performance person than a high performance, medium trust person, because trust really kind of trumps, performance. I think if everything else is equal, just my opinion.
Yeah. I can teach skills. Right. I can't teach somebody to be trustworthy, right? That's an inherent value or a personality trait or characteristic of that person that was probably set in stone by the time they were 13 years old by their parents, right? So I don't think people can change, but fundamentally the core of who they are generally kind of rises to the top of those things. What role do you think, and I'm going to say two letters that I'm overhearing, but we're going to say them here because I think it's an important part of it. And I think as we look ahead to the future of soft skills or professional skills, AI is going to have an impact, right? What do you see, these kind of baseline skills we're talking about, how do those change over the next 5 to 10 years as AI becomes way more prevalent in our writing and our content creation and just the things that we do on the day-to-day? It makes our lives easier, but it does reduce our usage or our skill muscle. It's going to reduce that quite a bit if we're just kind of dependence on technology. What impact do you see AI has on kind of the soft skills?
Well, I think it's going to require us to have more. Our soft skills are going to need to get better. That authenticity piece, the integrity piece, building a genuine relationship. I think those are things that we're going to have to really develop. Accountability. It's going to be great. I think AI is great for at this point augmenting the ways we communicate, the ways we do business. And in technology, I think there's a lot of really positive upsides, but I think as human beings, we're going to have to work harder at relationship skills, storytelling skills, being in right relationships. I think that's kind of where I'm leaning. I think we're just going to be required to have more developed soft skill.
For me, the biggest challenge around a ChatGPT is really you have to have a solid understanding of the actual problem, and you got to really know what to ask, right? It's only the AI's tools only as good as the question and the person who's putting in that thing to pull out that information. So it really does. It works a different part of your brain, if I'm being honest, around okay, so I have to here's my thing. I need this answer. What am I asking this machine to give me back what I want. And it takes some time to craft that out. And I think I'm curious as we move forward if there are intentional college classes that are created around AI prompts and ChatGPT stuff. I feel like there probably is.
Well, and I think it's some funny stories around that. And to be honest with you, Tony, how many times have you had to hit regenerate whenever you've gotten a response from ChatGPT? Regenerate, because it doesn't give you the answer you're looking for. I was, just to be funny, I volunteer with a scouting organization, and one of our scouts attained Eagle Scout, and he uses a lot of Gen Z terms, and I wanted to be funny, so I asked ChatGPT to give me like the top 100 phrases that Gen Z uses, and it gave me a list of 100, and I said, all right, now use these 20 in but use this this format of letter that I'm going to write this kid, and it took me like an hour and a half to really craft what I wanted to say the way I wanted to say it. But I really did use ChatGPT to generate all the content. I just didn't like the way that it had put it all together for me, so I had to do a lot of massaging and then re-asking. So it's going to take some skill development. I think there's going to be some skill development around using it the way you want it to generate the content.
Yeah, I know I've asked a lot of wrong questions, and I know it likes its adjectives and its superfluous language that it likes to use, and it vehemently uses adjectives. Like, that's so many adjectives, and so it's, for me, the stylistics is there, and then the emoji usage for stuff is astronomical. So I'm not anti-emoji, but in a professional setting, I'm not emoji many things that I'm putting together. But it is, for all intents and purposes, ChatGPT is a force multiplier in terms of getting things done.
Oh yeah,
and I think it's going to continue, and I think just beyond, I think it's a necessity. I think as we look at fast food and automation for these hourly jobs where workers and kids just aren't working as much, right? And these young folks get a bad rap. They're not lazy, but they're getting overworked and over inundated with sports and school. We're slowly bringing our kids up to adulthood stress by the time they're 13 with the sports and activities and the micromanaged schedules that we just got to let a kid be a kid and kind of learn and make some mistakes along the way. That adds to that stress. So, how do we make some of those things simple and really help kids be creative? And that's, to me, is like letting kids be kids. So
yeah,
that was my little soapbox for today. And I appreciate you taking my TED talk on just kids. You're right. As a guy with four, we all want to go fast and want the best for our kids. And sometimes the best is just, I don't know, be a kid, have fun, go enjoy your summer. You only get, in my mind, kids get 22 summers in the course of their life in the grand scheme, if they go to college. And then they get slapped with adulthood and they start looking at these things we're talking around, soft skills and power skills and, professional development and mentors. And they get slapped with life and reality. And like, oh man, that went really fast. And now I'm in the grind. So big advocate of just letting kids be kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we, as we're coming up, 30 minutes always goes fast, right? What's been a moment in your career that really kind of stands out as a pivotal moment for you, or a lesson learned around kind of a soft skill where you had a coachable moment with somebody that, had an impact on you?
It's a really good question, a really tough question. I think it's a bunch of those moments. It's finding a different way to communicate around the same problem and getting a result that is mutually beneficial. Learning, I think the biggest thing for me in my career is learning not to take things personally. That, in my role, because I sit in the middle of a lot of really difficult things, that when people are telling me difficult things and they're maybe even complaining about things, that it's not personal to me. It's about the situation. And I think I've had several mentors who've talked to me over the years about basically stepping back mentally and listening for the problem, and then just addressing the issue and not necessarily addressing the feelings. While relationships are personal, they don't have to be don't have to be a lot of feelings involved. So I think part of my development growth, the biggest growth in development, has been around like the emotional maturity, that kind of thing, and learning those skills.
That's a great answer. I mean, for me, I've had lots of moments and mentors, right? I'm very fortunate to have a board of directors and, can build a good relationship with 14 high functioning people that are passionate, that we all have a similar interest and passion. So I generally always have somebody I can lean into for questions. But I know for me, I've kind of leaned into, just internally a staff. Amber Lowry, our chief of staff, has been with me forever. We've been together for 8 years, kind of running this stuff. And there's been so many internal, like, good, deep conversations around the work that we're doing, and how we help to support people and be better. And there's been a lot of great conversations there. So, don't sleep in those relationships. You're going to know when you find that person who gets you and clicks that you're going to want to be around, or you want to see the best in that person, and vice versa, to really push and drive each other. So, those are great relationships to have. So last question, everybody gets the same one. I feel like a little bit like Dave Portnoy in Barstool Sports, right? Everybody knows rules one bite. But the last question, what advice would you give to somebody looking to level up their cybersecurity career?
Definitely get into some online, get involved in some online communities, get involved in any kind of online training that you can get, join an organization like CyberUp and get some training there on specific skills. I think don't wait to start. It doesn't matter. You don't have to have like this grandiose program that you get involved in. Videos, podcasts, audiobooks, anything that you can get your hands on. Ask questions. Get started. That's the big thing. Just get started. Don't get intimidated. Cybersecurity, when you start thinking about it, it can be very intimidating. But, if you're interested in it and you have the aptitude, the ability to learn, then, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, I took some advice from a book I recently read. Like, when you find you get stuck, I get stuck mentally a lot of the times, right? Where, like, you get so many things in your brain and it's going fast and you're like, okay, well, I don't know. You get this sense of overwhelm. And the advice was just do something, right?
Yeah.
And the action of just doing it or participating or starting to move forward in something is going to jar what you were doing and really spark that interest. And I've really have found myself, especially in 2024, of like finding myself in those moments and just taking a first step and doing something. It might not be the right something, but it's a thing that keeps those things going. So
yeah, no, I'm gonna butcher the quote. I think it's something like, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. I mean, if you got to get started and get up and get doing.
Yeah. Well, Scott, man, I've appreciated the friendship over the years. I definitely appreciate the time today and just the wisdom you've shared with our listeners. Always appreciate just, seeing the community kind of rally together, and to me, you're a big part of that, and appreciate just the ongoing support.
Appreciate it. And thanks for working with me with my technical issues and kind of, making it segue and making it smooth. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Again, we talked skills earlier. My skills are kind of, we can flow and make it happen and pivot, and we got through it and we had a great show. So for those that tuned in with us, thank you so much. Always appreciate the listens. We're almost to our 100th episode, which seems crazy to me. So excited.
That's amazing.
Scott, appreciate your time. Appreciate everybody's listening. Thanks. Until next time, see you guys soon.